Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the Open Door Wrestling Podcast, your entryway into the pro wrestling multiverse. I'm DJM. I am joined by my fantastic co-host, The Subtle Doctor. What's happening, Doc?
What is happening, DJM? I'm doing well. I hope you are doing well. I hope all of our listeners are faring well and are ready to talk. Well, I hope you're ready to talk some wrestling. I hope the listeners are ready to listen to sizzling hot takes and controversial opinions about the wrestling multiverse. Okay, listen if you can. Subscribe if I let you.
And we are happy to listen to your opinions on our hot takes and anything happening in the world of professional wrestling on Twitter at Open Door Rest with a W Pod. That's Open Door Rest Pod. And send us an email at opendoorrestpod@gmail.com. Let us know how great you think Doc is and how insane I am as we jump in to our second episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Now, we'll start off this episode with our rising and falling stocks, where we like to talk about who we think is on the upswing or maybe is on the downswing. And we'll talk a little bit about our future stocks, where we look a little bit further ahead. Doc, I'm going to let you start off. Who's your first stock up?
Oh, man. So I have a lot of notes here about potential stock ups. I have like at least 4. And I'm trying to narrow them down in real time, like who I should pick. I think the way I'm going to do this, DJM, is we're going to talk a lot of AEW after the stock section. So I think for my stock ups, at least, I'm going to stay away from AEW. I'm going to fly across the Pacific to New Japan. And, you know, this is not the futures section, so it doesn't need to be particularly sort of obscure or hidden gem. This is a pretty easy one for anyone watching the G1 Climax 31. Zack Sabre Jr. Stock rising. It's perhaps even peaking at this point. Zach is, I think, the standout in terms of like guys who have come out of nowhere and you think, okay, they could actually win this thing. His matches thus far, I admit that I'm not totally current with the G1. Gasp. But I have seen 4 of his matches in the tournament, and they are all 4+ Meltzer stars. Some of them very, very plus on the plus side of 4. I think that he is on top of his game. I think that he, you know, it's clear that before the tournament, pardon me, that he put on a little bit of lean muscle for this. He looks a little bit more cut. And I think that is serving him well. I mean, I think he's having great matches with people he's had great matches with before, like Kota Ibushi. So I reviewed that match for our bonus episode because I thought no one was really talking about it. And I thought that was a very excellent match, but sort of overshadowed by some other great matches in the tournament. His matches with Shingo and Naito were exceptional, as you'd expect. But also, DJM, I encourage you, if you have not sought out his match with the Great Okan, please do so. It warmed my cold little grapple fuck heart. It was so much better. I mean, and I love Okan. I am, of the two of us, I am higher on him. I considered him for this position of stock up. But man, I just, his match with Sabre, it was so clear from that match that he has that, you know, legit fighting background. You know, he's an MMA fighter. He's proficient in several different martial arts styles. And they really wrestled a Zach match. and I thought it was fantastic. It really blew my expectations away. So far, Saber for me is running away with the tournament in terms of like accolades and like wrestler of the tournament. So he's my very obvious stock up.
I think that's a good, safe stock to buy in, especially going into 2022 when the New Japan Cup comes up and it's really no secret anymore that that's Zach's tournament. And I think the story of the G1 so far has been the rise of Zack Sabre Jr. I think that's pretty common knowledge that Zach's rise and his big wins have really been the story. I hope it's something New Japan sticks with because Zack Sabre has stuck with them, New Japan. And I really hope this cements him at the top of that card. Will it lead to a Wrestle Kingdom main event? I'm shrugging my shoulders and putting my hands up. But I definitely feel like he's racking up wins at a level that is really great to see. It's hard not to root for him right now.
Totally agree. I think he certainly earned himself the sort of obligatory November title shot main event, the power struggle spot if they do a heavyweight
Sumo
title.
Hall, right? That's Sumo Hall?
I think that's a great question. I don't remember if it's Sumo or Osaka Joe, but it is. They've had it in big arenas for sure. I don't have that information in front of me, but
okay.
But that would be
great.
Yeah, I mean, because he's beaten the champ, and that's usually how these things go, right? It's like whoever wins the briefcase will defend the briefcase at that show. And since there's no intercontinental title and there's no never openweight title in Japan, that's over in the States right now with Jay White, it would totally make sense for them to do it. Hey, you beat the champ, Zach, in this tournament, so you should main event this building, and let's see how this goes. Now, you talk about like future Wrestle Kingdom main events. I think it's interesting to think about if this run of Zach's is what was plan A, because Tetsuya Naito at the very beginning of the tournament lost to Zach and then went down with a knee injury, and he is out for the remainder of the tournament. I don't know how he'll factor into things going forward, and if Zach is just sort of a pinch hitter. And if he is, I mean, I think this is one of the great sort of unsung things about New Japan is their ability to be able to heat up guys and have the quality of guy that you can heat up very quickly and just sort of put in this spot. I mean, that's why it's great to have people like Zach and Sonata and that kind of ilk, very sort of the second lieutenant in a faction, like very credible challenger, but perhaps doesn't win it if you have your whole stable of guys. You have guys get hurt, and then you have this second tier that you've made credible and is very easy to then give that last little push and elevate.
Agreed. And I hope that, and someone I'm going to talk about in one of my stock downs, this isn't just temporary and then they're kind of put back in their place. And I'm going to talk about that in my stock down number 2. But my first stock up, Doc, is someone that I mentioned on our first episode, and I made a mistake. I want to refer to them correctly, and they are someone who really caught my eye in Ring of Honor. And it's someone that is competing in Ring of Honor's women's division, but they are really, really standing out. And you see a wrestler that invests a lot into their gear and presentation and their overall aura and presence, and you just can't get them out of their mind. And that stock up for me is Max the Impaler from Ring of Honor. And there is just something that is so very rare about a wrestler, especially someone that's not in a major company, that has this much into their presentation and their persona and their character, while also having a monster gimmick. And Max the Impaler, it almost reminds me, they almost remind me of when War Machine really came to everyone's attention in Ring of Honor and New Japan. And it's just so cool to see what they are and what they could become. I'm so into Max the Impaler.
I really like them a lot. I haven't seen, unfortunately, any of their stuff since that tournament, but they totally jumped off the screen, like you're saying, just very advanced, non-shindy presentation. And I thought they carried themselves really well in their shindy, like really shitty indie, like
okay.
bad. You know what I mean? Like you were talking about the gear, like it could be totally easy with a very kind of gimmicky character to look amateurish, right? But they definitely didn't. Max the Impaler really looked the part, and I think you could find some really creative uses for her if you're Ring of Honor or Impact Wrestling. They totally stand out. Have you got to see any more of their work? I've only seen one of their matches.
Outside of ROH, no, but I'm really, really, really interested. And I think that the secret about Ring of Honor's women's division having a lot of low-key, under-the-radar, but really, really good talent and a lot of unique talent, I think the secret is kind of out on that, and I think Max the Impaler is one of those people that people are going to be talking about when it comes to Ring of Honor's women's division. And I've seen them do intergender matches on the indies, and I would not be surprised if that continues in ROH.
They just signed Trish Adora, did ROH. I think the news just broke yesterday.
Mm-hmm, they sure did.
I liked her too. I thought she gave a good account of herself in that tournament for sure.
She's very, very good. I've seen some of her work before she was signed. She's really, really good. I feel like she could be a centerpiece for their women's division going forward. I think that was a really good signing on their part too. Maybe I'm just investing in Ring of Honor's women's division as a whole going forward, but specifically Max the Impaler as a talent in Ring of Honor that I'm going to go out of my way to keep an eye on. Now we get into the not so fun part where we go into stock down. Doc, I think my first stock down might shock some people. My second stock down will surprise absolutely no one, but I'm going to let you go first. What's your first stock down?
All right. For both of these stocks down, I want to say up front that this is not an indictment on the wrestler. This is not me saying that this is a bad wrestler here. I think this is me saying, hey, company, or maybe even, hey, wrestler, like, what are you doing here with yourself? I feel like the way you're being used, really weird and or not good. So enough prefacing, DJM. My first stock down is Lio Rush, specifically in AEW.
I remember as soon as that promo appeared on Dynamite, Lio Rush's debut promo on Dynamite, I knew immediately, and I tweeted it when I was live tweeting Dynamite, people aren't going to get this. This is going to go over a lot of people's heads. And it turns out I was probably right.
So, as I said, I really like Lio Rush a lot. I think that he's been doing some great work for New Japan. He's on the indies, places like MLW, places like GCW, the fake GCW also. Or, by the way, are you aware of the fake GCW? Do you know?
I am not.
What I speak? Okay, so there's a fairly new independent promotion called Generation Championship Wrestling. And listen, they call themselves GCW to get a handful of ticket buyers who thought that they were going to see Game Changer.
Oh, that's why they so. That is so. Ugh.
Very small outfit, I think there, but I've seen Lio Rush have really good matches. I love Lio Rush matches. This use of him here was very odd, and I hate that I have to do this stock down here because I'm so glad he's back. 6 months ago, was it, that he announced his retirement? He said he's going to run out the string with New Japan, kind of fill out, complete his contractual obligations. And I'm thinking, well, he'll maybe wrestle we'll see a little bit more, like a few strong tapings, and that'll be it. But he just kept working strong. And, lo and behold, he got the itch again. Thank goodness for all of us, we get to see more Lio Rush. And then we get this plopped in our lap. I mean, AEW already has a character whose defining trait is I'm rich. So this just feels weird. I mean, I think I understand what he's trying to do. You talked about the promo going over people's heads. It just felt like that he's sort of, plays the stonks, right? And wheels and deals for profit and games the system. But I don't know. Again, for me, it just doesn't feel different enough than Hardy. It is kind of interesting that he's like wearing a hoodie and not like the sort of typical signifiers of I'm richer than everyone character, like the suit and fancy jewelry.
And I think I can explain the difference with this. And it is more of a cultural thing. See, I understand the character that Lio Rush is trying to portray here. He's being an entrepreneur. And he is someone that has invested in the stonks and probably cryptocurrency and probably has a few bits of passive income here and there. I'm sure you've heard these terms lately. And that's different from Matt Hardy, who made his money in pro wrestling. And Lio Rush is doing more of a kind of a modern take on investing and getting rich, whereas Matt Hardy's just kind of being the $1 million man. And I see the difference, but I knew as soon as that promo hit, it probably would not connect with a lot of people. It's very specific. It's very culturally specific. And it's not surprising that people kind of didn't connect with it, and I understand where you're coming from. I get the gimmick, and I'm interested to see how it will work within the context of pro wrestling. I'm interested to see what kind of investments he'll want to make. What are Lio Rush's stocks up and stocks down? I'm interested in how that will go. I'm interested in what he'll do. Maybe he'll make some deals with wrestlers. Maybe he'll build an organization around him. I see what he wants to do and where it might go. I hope it works, but I do understand where you're coming from. I do.
All right, let me push back really quickly here in two different fronts. One is that So even if your wrestling promotion has a sort of aristocrat and then a real estate dealer as two rich characters, like the way that those characters function in terms of wrestling stories, can they be distinct enough? You know what I mean? I mean, again, at the end of the day, like him and Hardy, they have their money. One is sort of, I guess, kind of old money and the traditional money, right? And the other is like the newfangled internet money. But at the end of the day, like, even the examples you were saying, like, he's going to buy out wrestler contracts, he's going to build a stable. We've seen that already. I mean, this is the HFO and how it came to be. And I don't know. I hope that
maybe it'll be a bidding war.
yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. That'll be interesting. That could be fun. And so the other way I want to push back is not necessarily on do I fully understand the character and everything like that. And it's like, wouldn't a better use of Lio Rush perhaps simply be I'm Lio Rush and I'm a badass? Like I could do cool shit.
Possibly. But there are a lot of guys in AEW that are already doing that. And in pro wrestling, I will never say no to a wrestler trying out a character. They can always try out a character, see how it fits, see how it goes, and I'm always willing to give that a chance.
Maybe I'll take a bath on this when I sell my Lio Rush stock, and when we meet for episode 5, say, I come on here and give a mea culpa and say, sorry, I gave you bad investing advice. Lio Rush is great. I hope so. I really hope so.
That is Lio Rush's thing now. That is his thing. So I guess we'll have to see. My first stock down, and Doc, this one hurts. This one hurts. And if anyone out there listening to this hears this, and Doc, you're going to hear this, and you might get mad too, but I think I'm going to be making a lot of people mad on this episode today. The old DJM is going to be back for one episode. My first stock down is going to be Thunder Rosa.
Whoa!
I know. This one hurts. This one hurts. But I think that, and while this isn't necessarily a bad thing that AEW does, AEW is good at cycling talent in and out and giving different people a spotlight at any given time, maybe for a month or two at a time, depending on if a particular wrestler has dates on the independents or in Japan or wherever. They're good at cycling wrestlers out. I think AEW has had a lot of unfair, unwarranted criticism in regards to Hikaru Shida after losing the women's championship to Britt Baker. But I think that Thunder Rosa...
I'm so with you on this. I'm sorry to cut you. I think people are so out to lunch on, like, get Shida on TV every week. I totally agree with you. After she lost the title, I think a cycle down for her, very appropriate.
I agree, and I'm starting to think that might be happening right now with Thunder Rosa. I think that she's been on Dark getting wins recently, but she just lost that big 3-way match to Jade Cargill. For a while, the narrative was Thunder Rosa is Britt Baker's biggest challenge. I don't think that's totally ruled out, but I think right now we might be entering a point where it might be time to give Thunder Rosa a little bit of time to cool off, cycle in a few new challengers for Britt Baker, and maybe a few months down the line, maybe in the first quarter of 2022, we'll see how the pay-per-views line up and everything. I think that right now, Thunder Rosa is probably getting cooled off. And it's okay, everybody. It's gonna be okay.
No, she must win all the time. She's the best. She's my fave. She's the best.
I love her. I love Thunder Rosa.
Yeah. No, she's great. I mean, I've tweeted on the account that she's the best in-ring women's performer in AEW by a country mile. And I stand by that. Maybe even the best women's performer working. Yeah, I mean, WWE has quite a lot of good ones. I think she could hold her own in that company, even with the great talent that they have. But back on track here. I agree with the stock down. At first, I was thinking, like a couple weeks ago, I was like, well, they're going to slowly build her towards Full Gear. Full Gear's not that far away, and she just took this loss to Jade. Maybe the direction they'll go is a feud with Jade, a singles match or something, and someone else will be pushed up to challenge Britt. it feels a little soon for her to totally recover from this loss and challenge for the title by Full Gear. And it's nothing. There's nothing wrong with them, as you said, waiting to do the Britt Rosa 2. Just like there's nothing wrong with them waiting to do Omega Hangman for the title, and really put the belt on it. Maybe they'll wait and do both switches on the same pay-per-view next year, RevPro style. I don't know if you saw that in High Stakes 2020, like they changed all their titles, put them all on baby faces, and they were all standing in the ring, and it was like a "here's the future of RevPro" sort of moment. Maybe they'll do that.
RevPro.
Love the RevPro.
I like that idea, though. I like that idea, though, of the potential of sometime in 2022 where it's Thunder Rosa and Hangman getting the title on the same show. That'd be wild. I'm not.
It'd be a cool moment.
Yeah, it really would. I like that idea a lot. So please don't kill me for my stock down on Thunder Rosa. Don't kill me on that. I don't like it. I do it with a heavy heart. But let's move to our next stock up. I'll let you go first on this one. What's your second stock up?
Well, speaking of RevPro, sir, we're going to talk some RevPro and also some New Japan, because my next stock up is Yota Tsuji, or as Lord Gideon Gray refers to him, Tsuji baby. Yota Tsuji is on excursion in RevPro, and quite frankly, David, the man is killing it. He's killing it. I've seen his most recent couple of matches, and he hasn't got a lot of wins. They're doing I guess they're doing something different with him than they did with Okan when he was there, because Okan went undefeated in RevPro. Tsuji just got his first win a week and a half, 2 weeks ago at High Stakes in mid-September against Mark Haskins. And that match was...
That's a win.
Yeah, that is a win. That is a very good win. And it was like... it was not the opener. It was like middle of the show. And so it was a decent match. They got some time, and that was a really good win for him. But where he really jumped off the page at me was the next show that RevPro did was called Unfinished Business. It's from the 26th of September. And he and the other excursioner from New Japan, Shota Umino, Shooter, they tagged to wrestle Aussie Open. And that match freaking ruled.
Aussie Open is so good.
They're incredible, dude. They, like, at that high stakes show, again, I reviewed this match on the bonus episode. Their match with Michael Oku and Connor Mills was phenomenal. To me, that match is up in the rarefied air of the All Out tag title match in terms of this year. Like, that's setting a high bar, I know. And they're very different kinds of matches. I mean, the cage match was its own brutal brand of thing. But this match, the tag match with Aussie Open and Destination Everywhere, was very much, it felt like a NXT 1.0 at its peak, with just guys doing so much cool shit and like a million kickouts. It was just done really well. But okay, tangents, Doc. Get back on track. Tsuji in this match with Aussie Open, like, I thought, like, he was the standout of the excursion team. I think so many people had really, really high hopes for Umino, and I don't know, he's not quite living up to it. Although I feel better about him than I did a few weeks ago. But Tsuji in that match, the man did a Spanish fly off the top rope, dude.
Okay.
Did you know he had that in his arsenal? I had no idea. But seeing him like outside of the Young Lions structure of matches, like there's just a lot of really cool things he can do. He's got a great presence. He looks fantastic. He looks like $1,000,000. Like, he was starting to look a little puffy at the end of his Young Lion run, but he definitely like looks a little bit healthier and just comes across so well. Like, so he's got the look, he's got just a great in-ring game. They just, there's just one or two more pieces of the puzzle that he needs to figure out, before he comes back. But that's a long time away. He's very recently gone on excursion. So he'll be in RevPro for a while. And I encourage everyone to buy Yota Tsuji stock while he's in RevPro and get in on the ground floor and check his stuff out, because it's been great.
Of the current class of New Japan Young Lions, and I guess we can include Shota Umino in this as well, of the current class, who would you say is the one recently that has caught your attention the most? We already know that I have essentially joined the board of directors for the Yuya Uemura organization. Yes. Like, I bought so much of that stock, I'm on the board. Who was the one that you say is your Young Lion?
So let's define the scope here. So I guess we're setting aside the two that are currently working as Young Lions in New Japan, right?
Yeah.
Fujita and the other kid, who they're both great, by the way. I love them. But they're very raw. So the guys that have left, are we including LA Dojo boys or just
we can include Japanese? The LA Dojo.
Whew. Well, I mean, I love Carl Fredericks a lot.
Yeah. I've kind of said that for him, I felt like he kind of graduated, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah. So he's him and why can I not think of the little rhino's name? Clark Connors. Yeah. They both have they're out. So I believe it's Reynolds and the DKC and Kevin Knight that are still Young Lions in the LA Dojo. So if we're not including graduates, oh gosh. So I think I'm going to exclude all the American boys because I haven't seen enough of them. I think that they all got something, but I'm going to try to rank Ren Narita, Shota Umino, Yota Tsuji, and Yuya Uemura based on where I think that they're at right now. And I would put Uemura at the top for sure. I think he's the guy. And then surprisingly, I think I'd put Tsuji underneath him.
Okay.
And then I would go Narita and then Umino. And I would never have thought that would be the ordering of it when they went on their excursions. I thought Umino would be at the top. I was not the biggest Tsuji guy when he was a Young Lion. I mean, I thought he was fine, but he just was never someone that I pegged to be much of anything, I guess. And he's flown up the list, but Uemura is the total package right now. I mean, I think he's just so far along, and he has the advantage of working with Shibata in addition to working, spending all that time with like Liger and Nagata and those guys in the Tokyo Dojo.
I would like you, Doc, in particular. I know you watch New Japan Strong a little more regularly than I do, but in that tag team match that you recommended to me, the DKC really stood out to me. And I think going forward, I might keep an eye on him.
Okay. Yeah, I think you might like him. I think everyone likes him a little bit more than me. Okay. I've heard a few people say, "Oh, this kid's got something," and he hasn't really stuck out to me in that way. But look, I'm willing to be proved wrong.
Okay.
So I will also watch the DKC with a closer eye.
All right, very good. My second stock down, this is another one that really, really hurts because this is one of my long-time favorites.
Did you do your second stock up? Who was your second stock up?
My second stock up is a move actually. It is a
Oh.
wrestling move.
Oh, okay.
Because I feel like the more I have seen this move recently on television, I feel like they are setting up this particular wrestler and his particular finisher to be the next great submission move. On Dynamite recently, this particular wrestler was doing his submission against the Elite. And I'm talking about the snare trap from Jungle Boy. He's gotten some big wins with that. Some big singles wins, some big tag team wins. I don't think it's really a secret that everyone in AEW is super high on Jungle Boy. He was the first single star in AEW to reach 50 wins. He's gotten big tap outs in matches and in just segments and pull aparts and brawls with the snare trap. And I think that when the time is right, the snare trap is going to be right there with the label lock, cattle mutilation, and all of the big submission finishers in wrestling. I really think that Jungle Boy has his move. It's the snare trap, and I think that's going to be a big one going forward.
Okay, I totally see it because I also love Jungle Boy. He's someone I considered for a stock up this time, because he's had quite a couple weeks here in featured matches, and he's looked very good. I think we might have to be the part of the squad that tells people to calm down when Jungle Boy loses, because I think he's still got some losing to do before it's his time to really elevate himself and, win major titles in AEW. And I think he will, and I think that's the plan. I think everyone wants him to. I just think it's going to be a more long-term play than some people might want.
He's still really, really, really young. And the long-term play on Jungle Boy is just fine. Everyone already knows about the young core in AEW. Sammy Guevara just won the TNT Championship. Spoilers, sorry. And I think that for Jungle Boy, the fact that he's being shown as an equal with the American Dragon Bryan Danielson, with that image of him making one member of the Elite tap out and Bryan Danielson making another member of the Elite tap out with the Yes Lock, I think that was a really great image that really made Jungle Boy look awesome. And I'm not worried about Jungle Boy at all. If he loses a big match against somebody like Adam Cole or against somebody like Kenny Omega, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I think that next year is going to be a really good year for Jungle Boy. I would not be surprised if Jurassic Express finally gets their big tag team title win or Jungle Boy wins a singles title. I wouldn't be surprised. So that is my second stock up. I think
I totally see Express beating FTR for the belts. I feel like that's within reason, like next year.
I agree. Doc, it is time for your second stock down, I believe.
It is. And this is one that folks may be surprised to know that I do enjoy comedy wrestling. I like, characters that are fun and silly. If they are used properly. So I really am high on this guy, but I feel like the stock has been dropping and probably will continue to drop with the state of All Elite Wrestling and who they're bringing in. DJM, my second stock down is Orange Cassidy.
Really?
Because, I'll tell you why. And it's not to do with his matches or his character or anything like that. Consider his his run since, was it Double or Nothing that he was in the three-way for the title?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was in the world title match and was a real threat, right? Presented as a real threat. But since then, and that's been 4 months now, he's been embroiled in this feud, which has taken various shapes. But in this long-term feud with the Hardy family office, the sort of prelim heel organization of note in AEW. And he cannot seem to get out of that mire. You know, I mean, he's beaten Hardy on television, and yet the feud continued. And these sort of odd hair versus hair matches that are fun. I mean, I don't have anything wrong with them in a vacuum, but I'm just thinking, like, you know, this is Orange Cassidy here. You know, this is not Chucky T or Trent or Wheeler Yuta. This is Orange Cassidy, who's, you know, he's been in world title matches. And, you know, we've talked about cycling down before, right? And he's certainly been cycled down since that. But during his cycle down, the company's gotten a lot more top heavy. There are a slew more top title contenders and people that feel like, you know, are going to get TV time, which is a good problem to have, of course.
Do you think Orange Cassidy's getting a little lost in the shuffle?
He could be. I mean, I'm struggling to see kind of his path forward. He certainly, how old is he, DJM? How old is Orange Cassidy?
I believe Orange Cassidy, I always say he's a lot older than people realize because he's been wrestling for a long time. Orange Cassidy is 37 years old.
Whew, Lordy. I did not know he was that old. Wow. I was expecting early 30s, but yeah, okay. So I guess maybe you don't want to like have some kind of long-term title plan for a guy that old, but I don't know. I mean, it's not like he's taking crazy bumps or anything like that. So yeah, he could be. I always kind of lumped him together inaccurately, but lumped him together with some of those young guys that you mentioned as far as like a sort of homegrown stars. He's certainly not a young star, as we've established, but he's a homegrown star like MJF, Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, and Sammy Guevara. And so for that reason, I always kind of put him in that group and was like, I don't know. He may be, like you said, a guy who's a little bit lost in the shuffle right now, but maybe that's okay with him. I'm not sure. I don't know where the company sort of stands with him. You know, there was that period where he, like I said, got into main events and stuff because he kept popping numbers, but I don't have a really good handle on what their long-term view of Cassidy is. What do you think?
I guess I see Orange Cassidy a little bit differently than you and maybe some others because I followed his career on the independents for so long. His age did not surprise me very much because he has been kind of a part of my wrestling viewing for at least a decade at this point, either as Orange Cassidy or when he was under a mask in Chikara. And I feel like, given the cultural popularity that Orange Cassidy has, he'll always have a spot. To me, I'm going to make an interesting comparison here in that he might be a little bit like Christian. He might be a little bit like Christian Cage in that with wrestling fans, he'll always have instant credibility. And it really won't take a lot to get him back up the card. I always feel like Orange Cassidy is almost bulletproof because his character is so good and his in-ring ability is so good that he could have a couple of wins strung together and will get everyone back behind him in any amount of time, so long as he gets those wins. I feel like, yes, AEW might be a little bit top heavy at the moment, but I don't think Orange Cassidy will totally be lost because I don't think it's a secret that he's obviously the ace of the best friends.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he'll be fine. He will probably be maybe just under the edge of a main eventer and probably in that upper echelon in the future. I feel like you might be selling on Orange Cassidy a little early. I think you might be selling a little premature.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it just is like a strange trajectory for me, because he was elevated in the feud with Jericho, and then he got to be in the title match with Pac and Omega, and he didn't he didn't win the title, which is fine. I mean, I think that would have been the wrong move. But then he's just been in this thing for so long with Hardy. But if he is a guy that they can heat up quickly, that's fun. And maybe he's one of those sort of mysterious types in wrestling that doesn't really need a title, because I was going to say, like, he feels kind of like it would be a waste to put the TNT title on him, but you don't necessarily want to put the world title on him right now. But maybe he's just the guy who doesn't really need a belt to be over and do the things he does. I think I've convinced myself that he's that guy. So yeah, okay. There you go.
All right, so we're going to wrap up the stocks with my second stock down. Oh, God. This one, I think this one is pretty much worthless at this point. So I'm finally letting go, Doc.
Okay.
I'm finally letting go. I am officially done with Hiroki Goto.
Oh,
I'm done.
Boy. Okay.
I'm done. When you are winless in the G1 and Yoshihashi, spoilers, has a win and you don't, it's over, man. Goto gang, I know you're out there. It's over. It's over. Sell, sell, sell. Unless Hiroki Goto does something dramatic. Like, completely changes his gimmick, completely changes his character, something, anything.
That ain't happening.
Anything. It's over. I can't with Hiroki Goto anymore. I just can't. He is on that list of wrestlers for a long time where I was just of the mindset of they're never going to get any higher than where they are. I might really like them, but it's never going to happen. It's just not. He's what I like to call on the Christopher Daniels list of just, yeah, they're great, probably never going to be world champion, and it's just time to let it go. I'm finally letting Hiroki Goto go, Doc. I'm finally letting him go.
Okay. I think this is wise because, I mean, does he even feel like a contender for the Never Championship right now? Which used to be his thing, right? But he feels so far away even from that.
Yeah.
I really like what they're doing with the trios titles. I think he, Ishii, and Yoshihashi have like breathed life into those belts, but like that just seems like his level right now, which is wild considering how he came into the promotion. And I don't think he's a particularly ambitious guy. I think he's got his money, so he does not doing this for that. But he's had the opportunity to jump to any one of these other Japanese promotions, and he could be great. He could carry them. I mean, All Japan could use a Hiroki Goto like nobody's business, but he's just...
So could Noah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. He'd be amazing there. But I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards. It doesn't seem like something he's interested in doing.
Nope. And if he's okay with where he is and what he's doing, then fine. So be it. I will accept it, but Goto stock was pretty much at a penny already. So I'm letting go. I am letting go. And God, Yoshihashi has a win in the G1. What is this?
Dude, Yoshihashi is good. I'll say it.
But it's Yoshihashi.
It is. I understand. Since he's one of the only things about New Japan Pro Wrestling that has improved since they restarted from the pandemic.
Yeah.
He's been much, much improved.
Him and Yujiro.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's not say things we can't take back.
I'm putting it out there. I'm very into Yujiro this G1.
He's
very
been
into the
fine.
Tokyo Pimp.
He's been fine.
He's been all right.
He has not been the detriment that 2 years ago I was scandalized that he would be. I was so absolutely mortified that he was in the tournament, and he's been fine.
He's holding his own, and that's all I can ask for. Okay, so futures. Who are we buying early and looking forward with? Doc, I'll let you go first.
So I'm going for Truly Blessed, as he calls himself, KC Navarro. Someone that before last week I'd never heard of. Which, some people might know him very well, but I'm not like deep in the dumpster of American indies. Shots. Sorry. I'm
gonna let you just hang with that one.
I'm not deep into the scummy promotions. So I had never seen him before. He wrestled on the rebooted MLW Fusion Alpha last week. He wrestled Gino Medina. Blew me away. Totally blew me away. Absolute exciting firecracker of a wrestler, man. Like, he's got like just this great lucha style of work. Very fast. Lots of, his vertical's great. Can move around the ring, like very technical. Fantastic little wrestler. Like, speaking of, you talked about Jungle Boy. He's Jungle Boy's age. He's 22 years old. And now he's not as polished as Jack Perry. And Jack Perry has had 2 years of working with, incredible minds and legends to help him that Casey is not. But yeah, that Casey Navarro match, I mean, totally just like jumped off the page. It's like a random throwaway mid-card match between, matches that really mattered on Fusion. And I went and looked. He had a match 6 months ago with, I think it was a WrestleMania weekend with Leo Rush, as we mentioned before, in the fake GCW. Solid little match. I really like this kid, Casey Navarro. Check him out.
Okay, Casey Navarro and MLW. My future stock is probably one of those if you know picks. And this is a guy that I've had an eye on for a little while, but most recently probably got his biggest spotlight on AEW Dark in a match against Absolute Ricky Starks. And this was not your typical 2.5 minute AEW Dark match. This was a competitive back and forth match. And I'm talking about the revolutionary Darius Lockhart. He's been one of those guys that has really kind of been bubbling just under the surface on the indie scene in the last year or so. Really at the same pace as Lee Moriarty, who just got signed to AEW. But I think that Darius Lockhart has been right there with him. Really sound technically, really cool character of the revolutionary. And I think that Ricky Starks gave him a good amount in their match on Dark for him to really showcase what he's capable of. And Darius Lockhart, I feel like, is a guy, I'm not sure where, but I think that in the not too distant future, we're going to be seeing a lot more of him on a national spotlight. The revolutionary Darius Lockhart. He's a guy that I really think that wrestling fans that may not have been in the know will probably want to keep an eye on.
So perfect fit for Ring of Honor, in my opinion.
I can see that.
Fit.
I'm pretty sure he's close with Trish Adora, and I think he would be really good in Ring of Honor. I think he'd be really good anywhere, honestly, but I feel like Ring of Honor would be really, really good for him. Also, I think AEW ought to give him a few more looks on Dark. See how they feel about signing him, because I feel like he might be somebody they'd like to have.
Yeah, look, I mean, he totally, I think, would work anywhere. I mean, I think he's that good. The man, he has the DVD cover of New Jack City, like that whole thing. He's really got that going. Like, it's so great. And he looked really solid in the ring, man. Like, it's one of those things that on Dark, sometimes you don't really know what you're going to get when you see someone you never heard before. Like, a lot of the times they're super green and they're thinking a lot. You could tell, and the kind of moving around the ring, they're still learning how to do that. Lockhart looked like reliable enough that you could put him on TV in a regular spot as an enhancement talent if you're AEW, and he would totally do a great job and would make everyone look good and would be very credible. The reason I say Ring of Honor is like there's just a lot more of a vacuum, a talent vacuum there in terms of like he could really he could
shoot up the card quick.
Yeah, he would have a chance to be the revolutionary and get mic time and kind of grow into the character and really like introduce that to people. Maybe be part of the faction game they have going on. He could really like play a more prominent role in a place like that, whereas AEW is just so crowded that I think he would be sort of, enhancement talent would be where I see him pegged at right now. Although I think, like you were saying, skill wise, he's totally solid, extremely reliable looking worker.
And I just think he's really, really good for anybody that were to sign him. Okay, Doc. We
not
covered.
Stay away. Please stay away from Impact. It would be really weird. That'd be a weird fit.
I don't want him in the Shadow Realm. That's all I'm going to
say. Exactly. My thoughts exactly.
So let's move on to our hot topics, Doc. We'll start off right at the top of the list. This is one that you had for me. This is a guy that I defend vehemently, loudly, and proudly, and unashamedly. So let's just jump in, Doc. What have you got for me?
Okay, so we're going to talk about your boy, Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
He's been
Doc,
in... Go ahead.
I just want to apologize in advance because the old DJM is going to pop out, and
that's okay.
If I start going off, I apologize, and I apologize to our listeners because the old DJM might pop out here and there.
No, this is what we want, and I wanted to poke you, get a good reaction, and so I'm going to ask you, DJM, some questions about Cody because he has been since Grand Slam in the news. A lot of people kind of questioning what happened at that show and like Cody's direction and his value going forward and things like that. And so I am going to sort of take up that role of internet person who is down or is skeptical, shall we say, about Cody Rhodes and AEW. These questions are not my point of view. I am a fan of his and have been for a few years prior to AEW existing. So I am by no means selling my Cody Rhodes stock or anything like that. But I just wanted to hear from you, the passionate Cody fan, about some of these topics that people were chirping about on the apps. So, first question to you. Cody Rhodes, since the beginning of AEW, has been like the fan analog. Like he's sort of the avatar, at least a lot of people see him as this avatar for everything the fans dislike about the Fed. And I think that that's not unfair of them because, on the first big show, he destroyed the throne with the sledgehammer, right? I think he sort of knows how people think about him and really embrace that. And I think that's all to his credit. But a little talent by the name of CM Punk has come into this promotion. And CM Punk was the fans' mouthpiece, their analog for their anti-WWE feelings, since the early 2010s. And so I want to ask you, do you think that Cody has become like somewhat redundant now since Punk is here and has filled once again this role of like fan analog for distaste for WWE?
I feel like for the longest time, people have held that moment against Cody for far too long. That was one moment in a vacuum where he did that with the chair and the sledgehammer. But I think for his entire tenure outside of WWE, I think all he's ever tried to portray himself as is the Prince of Pro Wrestling, I suppose, of being the next Rhodes' son in the Rhodes legacy. I think that for him, he has shown that he cares much more about WCW and the NWA style and the old school emotional pro wrestling storytelling that he was influenced by, and bringing that to the pro wrestling smorgasbord that is AEW. I don't think Cody has ever really portrayed himself as being an anti-WWE guy to the extent that maybe fans wanted him to be the avatar for. Publicly, he has never really said anything particularly bad about WWE, about Vince McMahon, about Triple H, or about any of those things. He's always been very positive towards those people. And the only bit of contention he's ever had is with the Rhodes name and the Rhodes legacy. I think that is more important to Cody than anything else. It's him making sure that the Rhodes name and Rhodes legacy is not forgotten to WWE's revisionist history. And I think that's what's important to him more than any kind of anti-WWE feelings. Cody is very pro wrestling. And I'll get into that a little bit later. He's pro wrestling. His entire life literally is professional wrestling from his birth. And I think that matters to him more than being anti-sports entertainment. In regards to CM Punk, I think that even Punk himself has said that right now he could not be happier to be where he is. It is so much more about being pro professional wrestling rather than being anti WWE. I think that a lot of wrestling fans out there really need to take that anger and distaste they have for WWE, and I think it's time to let that go. Punk has let that go. Cody has let that go. Bryan Danielson spoke nothing but glowingly about WWE.
He never had it.
Right.
Not really. Yeah.
And I think that what AEW is giving these guys is an opportunity to express how much they love pro wrestling. And you can love what pro wrestling is without being mad at WWE. You can do that. You can even ignore WWE entirely. Subscribe to the Open Door Wrestling podcast, everybody. And it's okay. It's okay to just not think about WWE. They don't have to live rent-free in your head. That's where the Young Bucks stay. It's okay.
So this is a very interesting response. I will, continue to play devil's advocate and push back a little bit here on your response and say that, like, I don't think that the fans, like, the way that Cody's become like a flag for them to rally around, a pro, plus pro wrestling minus WWE, which I think, kind of go hand in hand in some ways. Like, But although I do subscribe to what you're saying, right? That you can love pro wrestling and just kind of say WWE is its own thing over here, whatever. But I don't think it's the wrongest thing in the world for fans to hear them, guys like Punk and Cody and whatever over the years, put that little bit of spiteful emphasis on the term professional wrestling, Danielson too, right? And hear in their voice, like, I haven't gotten to do that. I've been held back from doing that. I've been prevented from doing that by this other place. And Cody's whole story of like asking for his release from WWE, saying, screw you guys, like you don't see me the way that I see me. And so I'm going to go make my name and really make something of himself on the independent scene, get eyeballs, be popular enough to like form this promotion and be a huge part of what it is. Like, whether or not he sees himself this way, I think so many of the fans have, and I think that it's fair to ask if this is a problem now that all these fans can go rally around the different flag, and like, what has Cody Rhodes now that he's not their flag to rally around?
Cody has pro wrestling. He will find something to do. He's too much of a pro wrestling character himself to not be able to find something to do or something to feud with. The Aleister Black feud being an example. I think that he'll be fine. He will carve his own path, and I'm not entirely worried about that. People will react to him one way or the other, and I think that's fine. I think Cody understands that. He knows how to roll with that, even if people think he doesn't. Man, if I was playing myself right now, I would chime in and agree with you wholeheartedly. People have really weird sort of thoughts about him being not self-aware or whatever. But okay, next question for you then about this is, do you think that AEW expected the fan reaction that Cody got at Grand Slam? Do you think that this was the plan all along to not just big up Malachi Black and make him a favorite, but like to turn the fans against Cody, at least to some degree? The New York fans, for sure. I think that they had to at least consider it might happen, because Malachi Black had got over in that way that characters like him get over with a lot of wrestling fans. And
the golf kids.
Yeah. And Cody, ever the pro wrestler, ever the good worker, was more than likely more than willing to make Malachi Black look like an absolute killer. Do I think they expected it? Probably not. But I imagine that they knew that they had to have a plan B if things didn't go how they planned. And they are leaning into it now, putting Cody sort of in a lower place and having him lose and seeing if he can build himself back up. And that's okay. That is okay. Some of the things that Cody doesn't always resonate with people, like his promo about his then unborn child. That was a promo that was so earnest and so sincere, because that's who Cody is.
Right.
I think that Cody Rhodes, in a very unique way, is about as close to his personality that you see on television in real life. I think that Cody Rhodes has been around pro wrestling for so long in his life that is as close to who he is as it gets in pro wrestling. For example, a lot of the other members of the Elite, you know that Tyson Smith is not exactly the same dude as Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
You know that Nick and Matt Massey are not exactly the same dudes as Nick and Matt Jackson. Cody Rhodes is Cody Rhodes is Cody Rhodes. And some people may say that is cringy, and I'm not going to argue with that. But for me personally, I find Cody being so earnest and so very real as far as his pro wrestling character goes. I find that to be infinitely endearing because he is able to take his personality, his character, and move back and forth. He was the heel in his feud with Dustin. He was the babyface in the feud with MJF. But he really never changed too much either way. And I think that's why it works. I think that Cody, where he is kind of in the same way that I saw John Cena for so many years. And I know you have this in the doc for the next part, in that, is he a heel? Is he a babyface? Should he turn either way? I kind of feel like it doesn't matter. Because I kind of feel like Cody is really good at weaving between the poles, as it were. And if you're going to cheer Cody, you're going to cheer him. If you're going to boo Cody at this point, with as much blood as he's spilled and as many guys as he's put over, and with as many people as he's shown he's willing to work with and what he's willing to do, if you're still booing him, nothing's going to change your mind.
I'm going to take my mask off for a minute. Bravo, sir. Bravo. I think that turning him heel would sacrifice long-term for some pretty good short-term gains. I think you could get some really good, interesting stories out of a character here who embraced his role and, was like, hey, fans turn on me. I'm going to start using my EVP power now, and you'll see how you like me then. And guess what? I'm going to put myself in a title program because I can do that. This is my way to get out of that stipulation with Jericho, that kind of stuff. And I think you could see some good, like, short-term interest and investment, but I think you'd be losing a lot long-term. You'd be sacrificing all the stuff that you're talking about like, Cody just being sort of Cody along a spectrum. And continuing to be that. Like, I think the integrity of that, like, is something worth preserving. And I think that he might be a little bit more of a worker than you. Like, I think he is quite self-aware and pretty smart. And I think he's really good at looking like he doesn't know what's happening. He has a really great dumb face. But I tend to think he might have even expected what happened at Grand Slam. I mean, look at the cape. That freaking cape it was absurd, dude. But I mean, he's like, I had this pointed out to me and I never thought about it, but like, he doesn't come out of the face or the heel tunnel. He comes out of the middle.
Nope.
And this is like, reflective of his belief. He doesn't believe in faces. Or now, doesn't mean that because he doesn't believe in it that he shouldn't, like, be face or heel. That's not what I mean, but I don't know. I just think turning him heel, I think it would be a bit of a mistake. I think it'll be like, again, grabbing what's in front of you and like ignoring the long-term investment that people have. So last question, and I think you sort of have answered it. It's like, but it feels like Cody has been lapped by the field to some degree. If you are a person who, again, putting my mask back on here, I'm an internet person who's skeptical of Cody Rhodes. Got all these new guys in. Cody's just lost a feud. Cody doesn't feel hot. Cody doesn't feel interesting. Do you think he'd be able to kind of grab his status as like a feature performer? Like, are the days of pardon me, are the days of Cody Rhodes in the main event behind us now.
But was Cody really ever in the main event to begin with?
I think just the one or two times at the beginning. I think the Jericho title match where he let go of his ability to ever challenge for the title again, that was a justifiable main event, right? Yeah. And then he's had high profile feuds, I think, since then, like that I guess were more TV main event than pay-per-view headliners. Like I think the Darby feud was featured on like a featured thing about Dynamite, and I think the MJF feud was as well. I think that was a big hot program. I guess like maybe take main event out, but like, do you think, like, well, I guess this is a silly question to ask about a pro wrestler. Do you think they'll ever be able to get hot again? Of course. I mean, Tony Khan can get people hot. Cody Rhodes is able to get hot. And, you know what? I'm just going to dismiss the question now and say you don't have to answer it, because even last week on Dynamite, I mean, I think the kind of continued fracturing of the Nightmare family, I happen to think it's very interesting. I really like the Cody Arn split, and where does Lee Johnson fit in this, and how is the factory going to react to this?
And I am very interested in how will Cody respond to Arn trashing him. How will Cody respond to that? I'm very, very interested. Is this Arn coaching Cody? Is he trying to coach Cody up to try and get something out of him? Or is this really a turning point where Cody's really, really out on the outs with the factory? I'm interested in seeing how that will go. I think Cody is telling a good long-term story. Is it a little soap opera-ish? Maybe. But that's kind of Cody's thing. For him, wrestling is very, very emotional and very serious. There's very little snark and silliness. There's very little memeing. There's very little winking and nodding at the camera with Cody and a lot of his storylines. So do I think that Cody could become a centerpiece of AEW again? Sure. Do I necessarily think he wants that? That's the question.
Right.
I think in many ways Cody is very self-aware, and he does see how a lot of people on the internet see him, and I'm very sure Cody is conscious of what he can do to keep people on his side to a certain degree. And I really think that he knows how to balance that. He knows the balancing act, and I'm not overly concerned.
Well, very good. Thus concludes my grilling of you about Cody Rhodes, your boy.
Now may I rant for a little bit?
Please rant.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Now, Doc, there is something that has come up recently in regards to AEW, which I happen to believe is a valid criticism, but there has been a massive blind spot among wrestling fans. There is a criticism that AEW seems to have an issue with their performers that are black or of color or minorities. And they seem to be prioritizing more of their white performers. There is one giant glaring blind spot that these critiques are missing, and I want to bring it to everybody's attention, Doc. There's one particular person in AEW, an EVP even, who has always gone out of his way, maybe consciously or unconsciously, to be in the ring or work with black performers or performers that are of color. On Dynamite, who was the person that was in a tag team match with Jade Cargill, Shaquille O'Neal, and had Red Velvet as his tag team partner? Who was that, Doc?
That would be the Codeman.
That would be the Codeman, Cody Rhodes. Who is the guy that has gotten Big Shotty Lee Johnson most of his TV time on Dynamite and Dark?
Well, that'd be the Codeman.
That'd be the Codeman, yeah. Who's the guy that's married to Brandy Rhodes?
Let me check. Looks like that's the Codeman.
Yeah, that'd be the Codeman, Cody Rhodes. Also, and one more time, who seems to be the only person in a position of power in AEW that has seemed to ever notice that Red Velvet is actually pretty good?
The Codeman?
Yeah, that'd be the Codeman, Cody Rhodes. So, for everybody out there that seems to have a problem with Cody, but also likes to point out that AEW doesn't do a lot with their black performers, you might want to give Cody's last year and a half or so in AEW a little bit of a closer look. I'm widening my eye like Tetsuya Naito right now, everybody. Go ahead and give Cody's run in AEW a better look. And you might just realize Cody's pretty cool. He even used the phrase hood rich in a promo on MJF once.
I remember this.
So yeah, it was Cody. It's been Cody all along. You're welcome.
Mic drop.
Okay, let's move on. This one is mine, Doc. And on Dynamite, there was the Brody Lee tribute and memorial show in Brody's hometown of Rochester, New York. His family was there, Amanda Huber, Brody's widow, and all of their kids, including the de facto leader of the Dark Order, Brody Lee Jr., a.k.a. -1. Now, on Dynamite, there was a tag team match where the Dark Order teamed up with Orange Cassidy against the Hardy Family Office. And recently in AEW, the Dark Order has been not getting along very well. Anna Jay has been out with injury, and there's really been a power vacuum in the Dark Order. Evil Uno tried to take the lead, but that really fell apart with Alex Reynolds leaving, Hangman Adam Page having his issues, and everything in the Dark Order really just falling apart. I really put a lot of this on Colt Cabana, by the way. He's a veteran. He really should be stepping up, if I'm being honest.
You got to take up the leadership role that's in front of you, buddy.
He's a 20-year vet, honestly, if we're being honest. But in this tag match on Dynamite, Evil Uno walked out of the match during the match. But then Amanda Huber and the family, the Huber family, came out and kind of got into the Dark Order's collective grill to, for one night, get it together for this particular night, along with -1 being there. And I'm wondering, how do people feel? And Doc, I'd like to ask your opinion on this. How do people feel about bringing in something like this, like Brody's widow, like his kids, into this wrestling angle with the Dark Order? How did you feel about that?
Well, I don't really have a huge hot take on this. I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, I've always thought that their involvement of and kind of shepherding and taking care of and looking after the Hubers was very praiseworthy, and is a great thing to do. I think, a lot of people have said this, but I'll just echo what they're saying. I think that the original Brody Lee tribute show will probably be one of the most important Dynamites to ever air, because of how kind of it showed the world the heart of AEW. And it was it kind of a PR move in some ways. I mean, sure, but so be it. It still is, at the end of the day, them honoring the memory of Brody Lee, one of their featured performers in a way that we've not seen an American promotion of clout really do. And involving, his son, I think is just really sweet. I think, he may want to be like more involved in the business, and they are taking care of him. It's just this reminder, I guess, that like, we remember you, Brody, and we're looking after your family. I think his widow, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she was like in the business at one point as some kind of backstage person. So she's not like a total amateur. So like, I mean, and she's like a free agent. Like, she's like was clearly okay with doing this. I don't think this was anything that was forced upon her. It's something she wanted to do. And if she wants to do it, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think it harms the integrity of the story. I think Dark Order as a faction is in this great place where you can do things like this because the point of the Dark Order is to be heartwarming. That has kind of been their MO since the passing of Lee. And I think that they're just fantastic at it. I think people that want to break them up, I mean,
oh no, I
hate you. Like you'll never be my friend. Like, and that this whole kind of melodrama has played out on Dynamite, but also on the YouTube shows. So like, this is one of those things that like watching Dark and Elevation will deepen your appreciation for a storyline. And I think that like they have handled. I guess this really
my question is, are you okay as a wrestling fan with incorporating a real life tragedy into this wrestling storyline?
I think I am, because it is. I don't find it distasteful at all. In fact, I think it is. It's not using it to get heat. They're not trying to make my money from it. They're not trying to sell pay-per-views with it or anything like that. They're not dragging him through the mud. MJF is not out here saying like, I'm glad your dad died. Like, they're not doing that. They seem to just be honoring his memory. And just sort of, that's what they're doing whenever you see his kid, whenever you're like, oh, like this company, like, they're taking care of the family. That's how it always appears to me. I don't find it distasteful in any way. Do you?
Distasteful is not the word I was going to use. It just kind of made me feel like it gave me pause. Not in any kind of negative way. It just felt like they were using a real life tragedy with a wrestler and incorporating that into a wrestling angle. And it kind of made me think a little bit about the Eddie Guerrero situation from way, way back with Rey Mysterio and Randy Orton and certain things that were said then. And you brought up a great point, actually, about how they're not exploiting Brody and they're not burying him, and they're taking care of his family, and everything they're doing is in a very positive light, despite the issues in the Dark Order. I think that you've kind of turned me around on saying it was really well done, and if Amanda Huber is okay with it, and she is okay with her kids being involved, and they're happy, and they're okay with it, then I'm willing to relax my pause on that particular feud and that particular storyline. And I said this on the Twitter account that the Dark Order has become something really special out of the worst circumstances imaginable.
I know.
And that is where pro wrestling can be something really magical, is that you take something that is real, but you can turn it into something magical in pro wrestling. And that's really where the great stuff happens, where it's real, but it's also pro wrestling. And
it's so AEW, because this promotion is about fathers and sons. It's about brotherhood, like siblings. It's about so many of the storylines and kind of players involved it's like family, like a wrestling family, and it just feels so of a piece with, like, the Brock Anderson debut and the Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes feud and reconciliation. Like, those storylines like are not too far from kind of what they're doing here. And there are a lot of ways you could screw it up. Like, if the Dark Order feud was about, like, we feel like you are not being true to Mr. Brody's vision, we are being true to Mr. Brody's vision, and then that's argue about Brody, like, that would be bad. But I don't know, that they've walked the line with it.
I think they have. And I'm willing to move forward to it. I'm willing to move forward. Doc, this one is for you. The MJF versus Darby Allin feud. I feel like this could be really exciting. I'm probably not as excited as you, just because I'm a little over MJF, but I feel like this could really be good.
I think it could be excellent, but I'm thinking about this feud as the beginning of something. The beginning of a new era sounds a little too hokey and a little too much for what I mean, but let me try to explain myself.
I feel like I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Let me see if I can put this in terms for you.
Okay.
We just had All Out in 2021. There's a very good chance, Doc, that I think All Out 2025, the AEW World Championship, the main event will be MJF versus Darby Allin. I feel like that's what you're seeing. Is that what you're seeing?
That's exactly what I mean. Because, largely these guys that MJF sort of shouted out as AEW's four pillars, Jungle Boy, MJF, Darby, and Sammy, up to this point, they have been feuding with established guys and, in large part, building credibility with the audience as, hey, we belong here. We belong at the top of this card. We belong in your mind when you associate AEW with Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, Cody. We deserve that mental association as well, and they've gotten it. I think that those four men, to some more than others, but I think that the four mentioned have established themselves and have gotten over in that way. I don't think, Jungle Boy is ready for the kind of thing MJF and Darby are about to do, but he will be, and he will be involved with this. And it's the kind of thing that WWE used to do quite well, 20 years ago. So bring in that next level of guys, and then suddenly, it's not just Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Suddenly, at the top of your card, it's like The Rock and Austin, or Jericho and Kurt Angle, or, so on and so forth. Like, that's the sort of thing they're doing. And we're at this point now where Darby and MJF, AEW feels that for this program, they don't need to be in a program with Chris Jericho or Jon Moxley or CM Punk. They are okay putting them, they are established enough, these two guys, that they can be against each other and it can be interesting. I don't know if they are going to do a pay-per-view match. I don't know if they're going to it's going to be a TV main event. Not sure. But to me, this just felt like a signal. And the way MJF started the promo really kind of tipped me off to that this felt like, okay, phase 2 is beginning. These guys, we have established them. They are stars. They are able to draw money. They are names. And now let's start building their history and stories with each other. So that 2025 match you talk about can have B-roll and have previous footage and have that mythology behind it that really helps put it over the top.
And that'll be right around the time that the Kenny Omegas and the Bryan Danielsons and the CM Punks will be well into their 40s. And these guys will be getting close to their 30s or in their early 30s. And It's a really good plan, and people love to praise AEW for their long-term planning and their long-term booking. And you can see that happening. You kind of start to see that the seeds have been planted and they are starting to grow out, so that in a couple of years, the guys that they have will be huge and they will have years and years and years of history, because with AEW, they can't use all of the footage that they have for Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks or Bryan Danielson. They can't use it all, but they do have plenty right now on Hangman Adam Page. And in a few years, they will have plenty for Darby Allin and MJF and Sammy Guevara and Jungle Boy and plenty of others on the card. And they're doing that now because in 5 years, when the Elite are starting to transition out of the ring full time, hopefully the rest of these guys will be in a position to take over. You hope that happens, because it seems to be in a good starting point right now, and you hope that it goes in that direction. It feels like a good thing that could happen, and I'm rooting very, very hard for Darby Allin.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think I think he's almost guaranteed. I think that they have really done so much with him that they would have to go off course in a way that they haven't really had a history of doing to mess up the upward trajectory that kid is on. I think he's going to be just fine, and he'll be a top line guy when his time has come. And I mean, I think, looking at the future, I think that of the slew of guys they just picked up, I mean, when you look at things long term, like we're doing now, I think Adam Cole could even turn out to be, at a certain point in the timeline, the most important acquisition that they've made because of how young he is, and he can continue to lift those guys. And I should have mentioned Adam Page. He belongs in that group as a genuine homegrown star. But I think he's even farther along than that group before. I think he's ready to have the title, imminently. So I just feel great about the long term of AEW. I think you could even look behind the 4 pillars that MJF mentioned and see a third wave of guys. If you want to say that the EVPs and the Elite are wave 1, these 4 pillars are sort of the second wave. You could see, your Dante Martins and your Will Hobbs and your Jade Cargills coming up as that next wave of guys to take the spots that MJF, Darby, and folks vacate when they move up the card, and the cycle will keep going. And I feel really good about it right now.
And I will just say one final note: do not ever sleep on Absolute Ricky Starks.
Oh man, I know. I love Ricky Starks. I worry about injury, but he could. The sky's the limit for that guy. He's so good. I don't know exactly where I have him slotted in all this, but he is he's definitely a guy.
For me, he is, as I've said with Jun Nakayama, he is the 5th pillar. Do not sleep on Ricky Starks. So let's wrap that up and go into the G1. The 31st G1 climax happening now. Doc, I feel like I made my points already in the show of how I feel about Zack Sabre Jr., Yujiro Takahashi, and Hiroki Goto falling off the face of the earth. So I'm going to let you take point on the G1, and I'll bounce in.
Okay. I mean, I think that the G1, if you take a sober look at it, I think it's been pretty good. I think people are so down on New Japan for reasons that we've discussed, and reasons I think are valid. But I think that there is some unwarranted negativity to the tournament just because our expectations for it and our experience of it in the past has been so high. I mean, just the highest of highs. And it is not that. But if what you're looking for is to watch, you know, a handful of cards a week that are going to run you, 2.5 hours, and you're going to get a 4 Meltzer star match out of it, and get, a couple of 3.5 Meltzer star matches out of it, and then you're going to get your Yano match or whatever. Like, if you're okay with that and you calibrate your expectations in this way, I think you can have a really good time with this. In fact, I think that for me personally, I think that there are, a handful of match of the year list contenders in this tournament. The stuff with Zach. Ishii is always amazing, and he's just going to give you maximum effort no matter what. You're going to have your Ibushis. You're going to have your surprises like Okan. Like, I am just so high on Okan, and I think he's been incredibly entertaining every match. And I just think that the company is behind this guy. So I think that if you don't want to be frustrated, it would behoove you to get on the right side of this with Okan, you being the audience, not you, DJM. But I think Okan, there's big plans for him in the future. I think he's a guy as well. And, his match with Zach, again, I would just direct everyone to. I think it's so far beyond what I expected it to be. It was fantastic. And I think Okada Tanahashi, they did it again, right? They are magic together. And I it's one of the great sort of bad timings of my wrestling fandom that I missed the majority of that feud in real time. Of course, I can go back and watch it, and have watched significant portions of it. But you and I know it's not the same as when you're there in the moment, in the story. You're invested. You don't know the results.
Blessed.
Yes. And so this match that they had, I think, of the ones I've seen in real time, I've only seen like 3, I think, because they've kept them apart so much in the last few years. I think it's been maybe my favorite. I would go, 4.5 M stars with it. I think it was extraordinarily good, and I think hit the highs that their match in Dallas a couple of years ago didn't really hit for me. And it was different than the other one that I saw, which was a G1 draw in the Balloon Okada days, when he was very sad, because he didn't have the title anymore after having it for so long. This one just felt like, I don't know, it felt a lot more straightforward. There were a lot of callbacks. It felt like, I don't know, they weren't sort of hampered by any sort of long-term story. Like, Okada's been doing a lot of gimmicks in recent years, or let's use a different word here. So some storytelling techniques in recent years, where he has been wrestling at less than his best, but for storyline reasons more than actual, like, I can't go anymore reasons. But none of that was here in their match. And I thought, again, it was exemplary in-ring storytelling and in-ring work, and definitely a match to go out of your way to see. Now, we are hitting the dog days of the tournament, and you're going to have a lot more kind of dross and chaff. But, as it gets, the money season, the money time of the tournament, the back end is upon us. It's going to be exciting. Because I think where we are right now, there's still a lot of possibilities in terms of who could win. And again, you're going to get, like, sort of, if you go in with an open mind, suddenly you're going to be hit with this Taichi Sonata match that you weren't really expecting much from, but wow, it was really good. So, I think just in ring, this company can still deliver. I think, the emotional investment piece of it is just lacking for different reasons. Like, and I don't even necessarily think it's absent. I just think it takes more effort than people might be willing to give.
But I think New Japan is always going to be there. And one thing they will always have is strong work in the ring. And if you want that, New Japan will always be there for you. It may not necessarily be the results and the storylines you want, But if you just want great in-ring action, New Japan will always get you home. So let's take this podcast home and wrap up really quickly with our last bit of news. Impact Wrestling is going to be debuting a new championship, and it is going to be the Impact Digital Media Championship. I think it's an interesting concept. I think that in the age we live in, having a championship that is internet exclusive is not a terrible, crazy idea anymore. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Doc, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think my initial reaction was, what the hell is this? Just because I didn't understand what digital media meant. I just was like, are they going to give a title to someone who has the most Twitter followers? Is this going to be more of a marketing gimmicky thing? Like, what is going on? But once I wrap my head around, like, okay, this is a title that will be defended on, their Impact Plus, or they also have a YouTube subscription thing. I forget what they call it, like Ultimate Insider, I think. There's going to be for that. And I think, listen, just like how you say, this is a little bit like, when you were talking about Leo Rush, you don't begrudge him trying something. I think this is Impact trying something. I think the title belt itself, if you are a belt fetishist and you enjoy the aesthetics of title belts, I think this is a cool looking title belt. You should check it out. I think this could be this could be intriguing. I think it's going to be intergender, which is a direction that Impact, I thought, was going to lean into a lot more a couple of years ago when they had Blanchard win their world title and main event in a cage against Sami Callihan and everything. And Eli Drake, left the company because he wasn't going to do that intergender trash or whatever. But they kind of haven't gone full bore with it. And maybe this could just be a place to experiment with that kind of thing, and not have it be on Impact Wrestling on Access TV. So I'm interested in seeing how the experiment plays out.
Agreed. They have someone on their roster that's very experienced with intergender matches. Someone that I'm a big fan of, Chelsea Green. And
I thought you were going to say Jordan Grace.
Chelsea Green.
Come on. It's so mean. How dare.
But I agree. I'm interested to see where it goes. Doc, this has been a heck of an episode of the Open Door Wrestling Podcast, our second episode. This has been a real barn burner, a real Donnybrook. So go ahead and take us home.
Well, folks, I hope that you have enjoyed the Open Door Wrestling Podcast as much as we've enjoyed making it. If you would like to contact us, if you would like to let us know what you think about certain segments, say, hey, do more of this, do less of that, at Open Door Rest Pod on Twitter. opendoorrestpod@gmail.com is our email. If you would like to support us and help spread awareness of this fair podcast, give us a rating and review on the old Apple Podcasts. 5 stars, please. If you don't, as Bomani Jones says, if you give us less than 5, I'm inclined to believe that you are a hater. So all 5s, if you will. And just follow us on Twitter. We're on Spotify. We're wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe.